Which of the following best represents the graph of y equals to negative 5x times x minus 2 times 3 minus x? So we have two steps to solving this question. The first one is to find the zeros of the function, or what is known as the x-intercepts. So here we have a 0 at x equals to 0, because minus 5x is 0 when x is equal to 0. We have a 0 at x equal to 2, because 2 minus 2 is equal to 0. And we have a 0 at x equals to 3, because 3 minus 3 is equal to 0. So let's check with our graphs. In A, we have a 0 at 0, a 0 at 2, and a 0 at 3. Therefore, this graph is a good candidate for our function. What about B? In B, we have a 0 at negative 3. But we don't have a 0 at negative 3 in our function, therefore this is not a good candidate. In C, we have a 0 at 0, a 0 at 2, and a 0 at 3. Therefore, this is also a good candidate for our function. And finally, with D, we have a 0 at negative 3, and this is not a good candidate. So the answer is going to be either A or C. To find which one, we move to step 2. Now, there are two methods of finding whether it is A or C, and you can choose whichever you find easier. The first one is to pick any value of x and check whether the function is positive or negative at that value, and then compare it to the original function. So let's choose x equals to 1 because it will be the easiest to work with. So in A, when x is equal to 1, so here x is equal to 1, the function is negative. While in C, when x is equal to 1, the function is positive. So let's check with our function. We replace the x's with 1s, so we get y is equal to minus 5 times 1 times 1 minus 2 times 3 minus 1. So here we get minus 5 times 1 is minus 5, 1 minus 2 is minus 1, and 3 minus 1 is 2. Therefore, minus 5 times minus 1 is 5 times 2 is 10. So therefore, y is positive, and it is consistent with C. Therefore, C is the answer. The other method is to find the sign of the leading term of our function. I will explain what I mean by using a function to demonstrate the idea, then we will apply it to the given function. So let's just say that we have the function y is equal to 2x cubed minus 100x squared minus 100x minus 100, or minus 1000, it doesn't matter. Now we say that the leading term of the function is x cubed because it is the one with the highest power. And we say that since it is positive, then as x increases, y becomes more and more positive. Even though we're subtracting all of these terms, x cubed is much bigger than the others, and it dominates the function as x gets bigger and bigger. If, however, the function was y is equal to minus 2x cubed plus 100x squared plus 100x plus 100, we say that the function becomes more and more negative as x increases because the leading term sign is negative, and even though we are adding all these other terms, it doesn't matter because x cubed dominates. So here it becomes more and more negative. So what about our function? What is the leading term of our function? Now we can find it either by expanding the brackets and working out what is the leading term, or we can do it in a much quicker way, which is multiplying the x's with each other without needing to expand the whole thing. So here we have minus 5x times x times minus x, which is minus 5x times x is minus 5x squared times minus x is 5x cubed. And the leading term, this is our leading term, The sign of the leading term is positive, therefore as x increases, y gets more and more positive. So let's check with our graphs. Here, as x increases, y gets more and more positive, and therefore this is our answer, which is consistent with our first method. See, with A, when x increases, y is getting more and more negative, and therefore it is not the correct solution. Now, if you found this step a bit too quick, we can simply expand the brackets. Let's do so. So we have y equals negative 5x times x minus 2 times 3 minus x. So let's expand the two brackets first. So minus 5x, 3 times 3x minus 6 minus x squared plus 2x. Then we multiply everything with negative 5x, so it becomes negative 15x squared plus 30x plus 5x cubed minus 10x squared. So the leading term is 5x cubed because it is the biggest power or the largest power, which is consistent with what we got with the first method. Now this one might be more intuitive, but it costs us a lot more time. So in the exam, you're expected to know the first method to save yourself time. Or of course, you can use the method we used earlier, and it might be actually even quicker.